The reenactments and commentary in this program may contain frank talk of a sexual nature. Viewer discretion is advised.
Liz, Liza, and dominatrix dolls, just another round of jaw-dropping testimony in Santa Maria. In what could be called a mind-blowing day, the jury hears about some special ladies, too human, but a couple weren't. In fact, a pair of bondage dolls. Hello, I'm James Curtis, and welcome to E's coverage of the Michael Jackson trial. Under questioning by defense attorney Robert Sanger, Neverland property manager Joe Marcus explains why the accuser and his siblings weren't allowed to leave the ranch. Here's what the jurors heard according to the courtroom transcripts.
Let's put it this way, not this particular log entry, but you were asked about whether or not you had ever given instructions that the children were not to leave the ranch. Is that correct?
Yes.
What was the reason that you recall for the children not to be leaving the ranch? Before you look at that, I'm sorry, I should have started the other way. I don't want to distract you with that yet. Go ahead.
Well, the main reason on this particular situation was that the children had been known to pull up to the gate in vehicles by themselves without an adult, driving one of Mr. Jackson's vehicles. So I didn't want the guards to allow them off property in a vehicle. Well, that was one situation. There was also a situation where there was a...
I'm going to object as to foundation. Move to strike.
Sustained.
Okay. As of February the 19th, 2003, were you aware of any incidents involving the children using vehicles in an unauthorized fashion?
Yes.
And what were you aware of?
That they had used the vehicles of Mr. Jackson's to drive around the property.
All right. Did that cause you any concern as the ranch manager?
Yes.
And what was your concern?
Number one, their safety. Number two, the safety of the employees and the property. And number three, the vehicle itself.
All right. And what was your frame of mind as far as allowing the to leave the property on any vehicles, whether it be automobiles, vans, or even ATVs?
It was not to happen.
Were the children supervised by a parent at all times during February and March of 2003?
No.
Were there times when Janet was not there?
Yes.
Did you ever give any instruction to anybody to hold any of the against their will?
Never.
All right, next are retired cops and moonlighting firefighters up to the job of security at Neverland.
Was it your understanding that all of these people understood the need to abide by the law?
Correct.
All right. And if they observed anything illegal or improper, was it their duty to report it to the staff, to their supervisors?
Objection, leading.
Overruled. You may answer.
Yes.
Did you have, as the owner, as the ranch manager, did you have an expectation that former police officers, former and current firefighters, would also report any unlawful activities to the civilian authorities?
Objection, leading.
Sustained.
The people that you have just mentioned, was there any secret made of their backgrounds?
No.
Based on your discussions with Mr. Jackson, was Mr. Jackson aware that some or all of these people were either prior or current employees of police or fire departments?
Objection, hearsay.
Sustained.
Was there any effort made to keep any of this secret from Mr. Jackson?
Same objection.
Sustained.
All right, starting off with this witness, a witness who I think noticeably was not called during the prosecution's case. He's the guy who actually wrote that message on that board that we've heard so much about at the guard shack. It was his writing.
That's the most peculiar thing, is that he wasn't called by the prosecution, because the prosecution seems to call anyone who has any knowledge about anything, for better or for worse. And this, yet again, is another witness who's in the for better and for worse.
Now, how does it play to you guys?
Well, you know, as this testimony continues, it does come out that there are a number of employees at the ranch who are either current or past law enforcement officers. And I think that's really important because it shows, I would think, that, or at least suggests, that Michael Jackson would not commit illegal acts with a number of law enforcement officers on the
I don't know.
property.
I think that's a stretch. If somebody's going to commit a crime, it really doesn't matter if there's a cop around or not if they're going to commit a crime, does it? Especially if they're off duty.
I'm not so sure I agree with the off duty or not. I think what we can count on, however, is if the prosecution doesn't call them, the defense will. No holes will go unplugged.
And Howard Weissman, based on your previous comments, and I want to explore that some more with you as we continue our discussion, is it a good idea for the defense to call all these folks? Moving on to cross-examination, Assistant District Attorney Gordon Auchincloss questions Joe Marcus about the King of Pop's special friends.
Now, during your 17 years at Neverland, you had a first-hand opportunity to see a number of young boys visit Neverland. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay. Have you had a chance to see a number of these young boys who spent a lot of time with Mr. Jackson?
Repeat the question, please.
Have you had an opportunity to see a number of these young boys that you just mentioned spend a considerable amount of time with Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson tends to form special bonds with some of these young boys. True?
I'm going to object. Lack of foundation.
Overruled. You may answer.
Not just boys, but yes. I have seen him have bonds with children.
Did you see Mr. Jackson observe it, form a special bond with Aldo Casio?
They were friends, yes.
What about Brett Barnes?
Yes.
Jason? Did you ever see him spend time with Jason?
No.
What about Wade Robson?
Yes.
Jordy?
Yes.
Macaulay Culkin?
Yes.
Gavin?
Yes.
Oh, if you could only hear Howard Weitzman during the testimony while it's playing. As testimony continues, did this witness know if children were sleeping in Michael Jackson's bedroom?
Do you have any knowledge of children sleeping in Mr. Jackson's room?
Yes.
On the interview that you had with the investigator at the time of the search warrant, you specifically said that you had no knowledge of children sleeping in Mr. Jackson's room, didn't you, Mr. Marcus?
That's correct.
That was untrue, wasn't it?
Yes.
So you weren't honest in that interview, were you, as you just testified?
Objection, argumentative.
Sustained.
I'll strike that.
All right, Howard Weitzman, I must go to you. You're fuming about not this last part of the cross-examination, but certainly the former part, the first part we saw.
Well, two things bother me. First of all, I think Mr. Auchincloss's question of Marcus is appropriate here. I think he's entitled to test his credibility and if he was truthful or lied during an interview. Secondly, the question Mr. Jackson tends to form special bonds. I think there's a lack of foundation. It calls for a conclusion, an inappropriate question, and this judge allowed it in, I believe, to bias the jury and have an inference there that's inappropriate.
And certainly that's going to be the defense argument. Sean Chapman-Holly, explain for us the technical side of what Howard just said. Lack of foundation, what does that mean?
Well, this witness really doesn't have the qualification to speak about the bond between Michael Jackson. Well, how can he know about the relationship? How can he possibly know what type of bond was formed between these witnesses? But beyond that, between Michael Jackson and these witnesses, but beyond that, the fact that Brett Barnes and Wade Robson have testified that there was no sexually inappropriate relationship really makes this special bond thing kind of irrelevant.
No, not according to the prosecution, because the prosecution believes that no matter what Mr. Robson and Mr. Barnes said, that they were in fact touched inappropriately because they have the government witnesses who say that they saw inappropriate conduct. Now, whether the question of special bond should have been allowed in or not, it just gets rephrased to say, did he spend an extraordinary amount of time, an unusual amount of time with these particular boys?
As does the issue of whether or not this witness lied to the investigators during the search warrant. That's going to give some good conversation, I promise. Still ahead, bondage dolls, Elizabeth Taylor, and other special friends. You got to stay with us.
The reenactments and commentary in this program may contain frank talk of a sexual nature. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome back. Neverland property manager Joe Marcus testified that the accuser and his siblings were not allowed to leave the ranch for safety reasons. But on cross-examination, Assistant District Attorney Gordon Auchincloss questions the witness about the timing of his order. Now, a programming note here. Hamid Maleshi was Michael Jackson's personal videographer. Here's what happened according to the courtroom transcripts.
And then under that, it said Hamid is going up there. So does that mean at 5:40 Hamid is going up to the Hill House garage?
That's what it appears.
And then under that, approximately 12 minutes later, there's a notation. The kids are not to leave, per Joe. Kids meaning like Gavin, Starr, etc.?
That's correct.
Is that when you made that directive to security that the kids are not to leave?
Did I call them at 1752? I don't know.
Okay. Would it be the policy of the security guard to make that notation when you made that call?
It would be the policy, yes, but it's not always the case.
Okay. But the reason why they have a number next to that, the 1752, that's to connote the time that you made that order.
That's correct.
Okay. So 12 minutes after Hamid arrives, you decided that the kids are not to leave the property, true?
That is true.
And your testimony is that your reason for that is because you were concerned about the kids at the moment driving off the property, driving an automobile. Is that the reason why you made that order?
I also stated that there was a documentary going on, and it was undecided where the location was going to be that it was going to take place.
Next, relevance aside, are X-rated knickknacks appropriate for the office?
You've seen pornography, or, excuse me, you've seen adult erotic materials at Neverland Ranch, correct?
Yes.
And have you seen adult erotic materials in Mr. Jackson's room?
No.
Have you seen adult erotic materials in areas where Mr. Jackson allows children to be?
No.
Do you know if Mr. Jackson possesses adult erotic materials?
Lack of foundation.
Overruled. You may answer.
Yes.
You know that he does possess adult erotic materials?
No, I don't know that he does.
You have no knowledge of that?
Have I gone out and bought them for him? No. Do I know that he owns them? I haven't seen them with him. No.
Well, you've been in his office numerous times, true?
Yes.
I'm showing you Exhibit 779. Do you consider these adult erotic materials, Mr. Marcus? Yes, do you?
No. I mean, yes, they are. They're artwork, but...
You keep looking at Mr. Jackson. Why is that?
Objection. Argumentative.
Sustained.
Okay, so you admit that these are adult erotic materials.
Asked and answered.
Sustained.
And you have seen these before, haven't you?
Yes.
And they are on Mr. Jackson's desk, in his office.
That is correct.
And they are there when children are allowed to come into his office.
That is correct.
Ricky Kleeman, why is this line of questioning necessary or important?
Why?
Well, we understand why it's important
I know
from the
this is difficult for you,
prosecution's.
Darla, I know.
From the prosecution's point of view, it's again Michael Jackson acting inappropriately, having these items which are a bit
why
bizarre.
For this witness?
Well, I suppose because this witness is the person who has testified that he never saw anything inappropriate. Everything was fine. There was never anything wrong in terms of how these children were treated or what they were exposed to. So that's the argument.
Sean?
One of the good things that is demonstrated in this cross-examination is that this is a witness who would probably do anything for Michael Jackson.
The
He's
looking,
so
why are you looking at
loyal,
Michael Jackson?
And we see that.
Yeah.
But this questioning is just more of the prosecution just trying to make Michael Jackson look bad. This is
That's
totally
right.
irrelevant.
Of course they're trying to make Michael Jackson look bad. That's part of the point for the prosecution.
No,
Make
it
him look
isn't.
guilty.
There's nothing through this witness. This district attorney gets to say the word pornography again in front of the jury. He gets to say the word erotic again in front of the jury. He gets to point out the witness is looking at Michael Jackson, and the inference being he wants approval and he's going to testify.
Certainly. But what I want to do is...
anyone would have used that, though, James.
Oh, I
Don't
would
you?
have used it, and I've done it before. But let's talk about... Let's hold on a second. Let's talk about the rational, logical connection, if there is one, between what this witness observes and these charges against Michael Jackson.
There isn't any.
No,
there isn't any.
It doesn't seem to me. That's the problem I have.
It has to do with the fact that if you put in the 1108 evidence, which are the prior bad acts, this man has worked for Michael Jackson for 17 years. So what this man is saying is nothing bad ever happened at Neverland.
I got that. But if this man did not witness this conduct, the erotic materials, in connection with these young kids, then what does it matter? Next, Michael Jackson, ladies' man. Oh, yeah, baby. On redirect examination, defense attorney Robert Sanger wants to know, was Neverland a boys' club only?
All right. Now, you were asked by Mr. Auchincloss about special bonds with different people, and he asked about young boys, I think, in his own words. Do you recall those questions?
Yes.
Did Mr. Jackson have any special bonds with young girls?
Yes.
Can you recall, well, I don't want to go and list the names here unnecessarily, but do you recall any Casio children?
Yes.
Who would that be?
Marie Nicole?
How about the Culkin family?
Objection, leading.
Sustained.
All right. Were there other girls who were family members? Let me withdraw that. Were there other girls who visited the ranch?
Yes.
And did other girls besides Marie Nicole seem to have a special bond with Mr. Jackson and vice versa?
Objection, asked and answered.
Overruled. You may answer.
Yes.
And who were they, the best you can recall? Do you recall some names?
I don't recall the names of each individual child, no, but some of the Culkin kids, Carly Barnes, I don't recall exact names now.
Okay, but were there girls involved in activities?
Yes.
Now, were there also adult women who had a special bond with Mr. Jackson?
Objection. Well, I'll withdraw that objection.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Okay. Besides the women to whom he was married, were there other women who seemed to be particularly close friends with Mr. Jackson?
It appeared to be, yes.
Okay. Do you recall the names of any of those particular individuals?
Besides his wives?
Yeah.
He has friends, Elizabeth Taylor. I'm drawing a blank on a few of the names, but...
You need to speak up just a little. You're trailing off there. You said Elizabeth Taylor, and you drew a blank on the others?
Yeah. There's other women.
Okay, one thing you should know from this testimony, this is not examination by Tom Mesereau. We'll tell you why in a moment as the testimony continues. Is one man's art another man's porn? That's what Assistant District Attorney Gordon Auchincloss seems to want to know.
You said that Mr. Jackson was not, you've never seen him in personal possession of adult materials. What would you call those figurines that I showed you?
Objection, argumentative, asked and answered.
I'll rephrase. Wouldn't you call those figurines that I showed you adult materials?
Objection, asked and answered.
Overruled.
You may answer.
They strike me as artwork, yes.
They're just artwork or adult materials.
It's a type of art.
Objection. Excuse me. Object. Argumentative, compound.
Overruled, but I really don't have your question.
Yes, I'll rephrase that. My question is, would you consider the figurines that I showed you adult materials?
I consider them a type of artwork.
Do you consider them to be adult materials? I'm not asking you whether they're artwork or not.
I understand your question.
My question is, do you consider them to be adult materials, yes or no?
A type of artwork of adult nature, yes.
You think it's appropriate for children to be exposed to these type of materials?
No.
Is this a revisitation of the Ashcroft covering up the statues in the Department of Justice, which I've seen with my own eyes? I was there a couple of months ago.
Yes.
Artwork, figurines. What's
this
going on
moralistic, holier-than-thou kind of government stance. It just seems completely inappropriate and not at all bearing on what is critical in this case.
That's the big issue, though, isn't it, Ricky? How does this, whatever's on his desk, connect to the so-called pornographic materials that were used to seduce or weaken these young boys?
All it has to do with the fact that the defense decided to call this witness. The defense put this witness on for two purposes. One is to talk about the order of Gavin and his brother not to leave the premises and to say, well, it really was because they were driving these vehicles. The second purpose was to show that all was right in Neverland and it was an atmosphere of purity where children could just go frolic in the woods. So the defense called him and then they got cross-examined.
Skewered a defense misstep. I can't wait for Howard's analysis on how you get a witness on the other side to adopt your phrasing. When we come back, we'll do that. And did this witness plant a landmine for the defense? Stay with us.
The reenactments and commentary in this program may contain frank talk of a sexual nature. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome back. The defense says Michael Jackson had special friendships with girls and women as well as boys, but the prosecution doesn't appear to be buying it. Assistant District Attorney Gordon Auchincloss presses ranch manager Joe Marcus to name some of Jackson's gal pals. Here's how he did it according to the courtroom transcripts.
You were asked about Mr. Jackson's relationship with young girls, and over your 17-year period at Neverland, you were able to come up with two names that he had a close relationship with young girls, Carly Barnes and Marie Nicole Cassio, correct?
Objection, argumentative.
Overruled.
And misstates the evidence, Your Honor?
Overruled. You may answer.
I believe you gave me a list of the boys' names, and I didn't have a list of the females' names, so no. I don't recall every single person's name, no.
So my question is, you were able to come up with two names. Any more? Is that it, just two?
Objection, argumentative, misstates the evidence. He came up with more than two names, Your Honor.
Overruled. You may answer.
I'm sure there are others. There was Shane Brando's sister. I don't recall her name.
Go ahead.
I don't recall her first name off the top of my head.
My question is, can you remember any other names?
No.
And you were asked about adult women that Mr. Jackson formed a special bond with other than his wives. And you came up with one, Liz Taylor, correct?
Do you mean just friends? People that
I mean a special bond, close relationship with.
Liza Minnelli has been there, and they seem to be good friends.
How many times has Liza Minnelli been there?
I don't recollect.
So we're up to 2. Any others?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Howard, will you now give a critical critique to the defense based on this cross-examination?
Yes. I have no idea why someone would ask, did Mr. Jackson have any special bonds with young girls if they're representing him, and introduce that whole subject matter, adopt the special part of the questioning that introduced by the district attorney, which, of course, only has negative inferences.
Let me get this right. I want to get this right. The defense is trying to say that we should really accept Michael Jackson as a heterosexual. That was the intent. He has special bonds with little girls, but he also has lots of women at his home, except for the fact that on cross-examination, the witness can only name 2.
Yeah, what about this lying issue? Go ahead,
They
John.
are. I mean, Liza Minnelli and Elizabeth Taylor are not what you would think.
People are not coming over the house on
Right.
What about this idea? What about this idea that this witness lies initially during the search warrant portion? I think that's kind of understandable.
Well,
he's nervous, he's scared.
That's fine. He can say he lied, he's sorry he lied. The problem is his explanation about why he lied was so lame. It was just so lame, and he should have been prepared for that.
Well, but I don't know if it was really that lame. Do you think so? I mean, he's nervous. It's the search warrant. You can't answer because we got to go.
I think.
Be sure to watch our exclusive coverage of the Michael Jackson trial tomorrow, 7:30 p.m. right here on E. Okay, now you can answer. What are you going to say? Exactly.